one barrier, if at all, that will suppress the growth of a nation is the lack of financial literacy.
Perspective, there is this such a big gap in the market right now, and you don't need to be an accountant or you don't need to be a finance grad to be able to understand personal finance. So
Said people don't plan their personal finances, and when the systems like COVID comes, people just break down.
Financial literacy has increasingly become a necessity to a lot of us. And I think COVID is something that has made us realize that one source of income is just not enough to sustain any longer. One thing about finance is that it's very industry and sector agnostic, and this is what most of our country doesn't actually understand. And you can just see this by the reflection of the number of people that are involved in the stock markets, for instance. And I'm sure everyone has heard that the Indian youth is meant to be, the millennials are meant to be the aspirational people. And one barrier, if at all, that will suppress the growth of a nation is the lack of financial literacy. And I think it's been just about 6 to 7 years that I've graduated from the schooling system in India. And I mean, forget India for that matter, I did the international baccalaureates, which is an international degree. And I can assure you that there was not even a mention of financial literacy or financial planning. And in essence, the education system is not really focused on making us life ready, rather more or less degree ready. And that's why we actually have some of the top people coming out of the best universities in the world, the best universities out of India, and yet so many of them are unemployed. So many of them are doing jobs that are much lower than what they should be doing, simply because they're not life ready. They don't have the social skills to manage in those top level jobs. They don't have the exposure, experience of being just literate about some of the basic financial terminology, which is essential to every job role.
but something when it comes to as simple as personal finance or managing your own money, most people would think that okay, I need to save enough to be able to buy a house. Where if they were to do a mathematical analysis of whether you should be buying a house or renting a house, they'll realize that renting is so much cheaper, and they can invest all that money to give much higher returns in the future. A person may be feeling that I bought a house, say 20 years back at 25 lakh, which today is for 5 crores. But if he had put that money in equities or some other investment avenue, that would have resulted in maybe a 7.5 or a 10 crore now. But it's just that it's so counterintuitive to general thinking that people just don't do that calculation when it comes to their own life's decisions, because it's almost like society tells you you need to be able to buy a house for yourself by the time you've hit the age of say 40, which in today's time, given how overpriced real estate is, a few people may not even be able to achieve by the time they've hit 50, especially not if they're not taking decisions based on personal finance. So I kid you not, being a CA myself and knowing a lot of my other peers, also having done my master's in MBA in finance, I have not seen a personal finance course in CA, in CS, in CMA, at the MBA, at ISB, not even as an elective. There is just such a big gap in the market right now. And you don't need to be an accountant or you don't need to be a finance grad to be able to understand personal finance.
And if we see any entity, which be it a person, be it a business, or be it a country, the finance is the backbone of that particular entity. So somewhere it is very important for each and every person to plan their lives and with the accordance to the finances. That what should be the outlook towards insurance? Like, is it an investment tool or is it a finance? Is just insurance tool? So that minute things are not aware. People are not aware of that minute things, and this leads to somewhere a very bad financial planning in the current system. And that being said, people don't plan their personal finances, and when the systems like COVID comes, people just break down. They don't have a thing to fall back on. Their current earnings might get impacted by the scenarios because they were unprecedented times.
Investing is something that does require at some level not only the understanding but also a lot of maturity and sensibility. And whenever any of these rules are made, as we all know, it also takes into consideration the average level of psychological development of the mind of people when they're 18, and that's why certain rules are set out. So in my opinion, I think being able to create a demat account at 18 is fine, but that doesn't mean that you can't prepare till 18, so that you're well aware by 18 that this is what all of these things mean, and then you start your investing journey, whatever asset class it might be in. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it really depends on you. So you can be an 11-year-old child, you can be 12, 13, 14, and you can start your financial journey, because it is something that requires time, experience, knowledge, and depends on you how much you want to be by the time you can actually start doing all of that.
Firstly, I think if you were to go back and look at what has happened in India in the past 1 year, India has been seeing a bull run in equities. Somehow, any person sitting at home who opened a new demat account last year, be it on Zerodha or Grow or any other such app, and invested money, has seen a growth regardless of which stock they purchased. Which also means a lot of these people who are new to this industry would feel, hey, I've cracked it. I know if I put money in this, it is going to grow. I am intelligent. I am smart. Because so far, anyone who started their journey, and I'm speaking about adults, okay? I'm speaking about adults who are fully qualified, who've done their postgrad, who are highly academically qualified, who've started doing this, and they feel, hey, I'm meant for this. Now, because even though equities are riskier in comparison to fixed deposits, but somehow because people haven't experienced a loss yet, whoever has started in the past 1 year, they have they can't conceptualize or understand the risk because they haven't faced it. For them, it's just on paper. What they're comparing different investment avenues are from the perspective of return and not from the perspective of risk, which is why it's important that you educate people on it and maybe keep the bar at 18. I'd say there could be different opinions on this, but till the time they're not even 18 and they haven't got at least 4, 5, 6 years of education in finance, there is no way that they can understand the risk associated with it, when well educated adults at the age of 40 cannot do it. So keep that bar of 18. However, what can help is something as simple as just setting an amount aside from your pocket money and putting it in a savings deposit. Or if parents could just be like, hey, we want to open a bank account for you, these are the 4 options. These are the factors that you should consider. These are the terms of opening a bank account that you should look at. Or you've saved up this money, we want to put it in a fixed deposit. You tell us which bank's fixed deposit should we put this in. These are the rates, these are the conditions, this is the tenure. In how much time do you think you want this money back? Do you want it to buy a cycle for yourself? Do you want it to buy a laptop for yourself? Or are you saving this for a higher education later? Just making them understand that investments come with the knowledge of knowing tenure, knowing linking it with your goals. That is more important. If we open every avenue of investing to young people at this age, I'm afraid they will end up making a lot of mistakes because they can't understand, they don't have that maturity. I mean, a lot of young people are investing in cryptocurrencies because they're seeing this boom, but they don't even understand the kind of risk associated with it. So I think it takes time and experience, and we need to give them those many years of knowledge and experience before they can take those decisions for themselves.
So what I can think about of a solution is that we can have some simulation softwares in the early stage of child education, where the schools and the parents only can enroll the students, and there will be no profit or loss as such in that particular scenario in the simulation games. But what they will do is they will just replicate the current scenarios of different asset classes, different kind of investments and expenses that a child might do and want to do in the investment scenario. So let's say a child enters at the age of 14 through the simulation scenarios, and by the 18th he have experience of 4 years in terms of asset investments and expenses bifurcation. So this can be a solution which after that at the age of 18 they definitely can go ahead and start investing, and they might have learned a good few concepts which will help them in terms of whatever they are investing in and how the different asset classes are performing. So this can be one way of doing it. But yeah, entering into the securities markets and investment scenario, one should be very well prepared of what all kind of risk and the returns they are going into. There will be scenarios where you will get negative returns. There will be scenarios when the stocks which you trusted might get fall because of some issues which were not known to you. But in the long term, if we see, the equity markets give a good amount of decent returns. And also, that being said, we should also keep in mind that there should be a benefit of diversification which should be taken into point. So let's say there are 100 companies available to invest in. So what I will do is I will find out, let's say, 10 companies, and if I have 1,000 rupees, I would divide, let's say, on a particular metrics, that I will put some amount of money in this and that. So that will be my choice. I will not be putting my 100% of the money in a singular company. So that gives me the benefit of diversification where I can reduce my risks. And also, in terms of unreliability, I don't agree with it, because when the companies are profitable, the markets are bound to follow that particular trend, and they're gonna give the returns which a particular investor is expecting from that company. So that will be the input from my side for this question. And if we say that, what should be the current approach to it, so we can also start with, let's say, FD first. And if we are going to the stock markets, then let's give it some amount of time, let's say 2 to 3 years, in terms of you can have a mutual fund and you can put your money in different mutual funds according to the what we can say fund name of that particular fund. So that being said, diversification and all these things coming up together will give a very good experience to the particular investor in the stock market. And they should always come into the stock market when they are having a long term perspective. And that is the only way where you can, have build a wealth of particular good amount in the long term.
The problem today is that most people do not have the time or do not wish to invest the kind of time in understanding the businesses that they're investing in. Because when you put money in the stock market, it's not the stock market you're putting money in, you're putting it in specific businesses and their ability to grow. So there's a possibility that because of waves in the economy, they may have a downfall in the next year and then they may rise back up. But from a long-term perspective, if you think over a 10-year horizon, this can grow, then you better put it. Also, a VC is ready to wipe off 40% of its holding or asset because it realizes these will go down to dust. But I should be well invested in different markets, in different teams, in such a way that even if this 40 is wiped off, the remaining 60 can take me up to at least a 10x return over a 10-year horizon through an exit. Even if one of them get to an IPO stage, he knows he's really made money on the entire portfolio. Which is why if retail investors were to also take learnings from that approach, they would realize if you don't have the time to invest in this kind of study because it takes full time to do that extensively, might as well just trust the economy and put money in mutual funds. I mean, I quite honestly, despite being a CA and getting all these degrees in finance, to not find the time to do this on a daily basis. So where do I put most of my investments? In index funds or in ETFs? Because if you don't have the time, at least trust some other professional or the Nifty or the Sensex to create a well diversified pool where you just replicate that portfolio and don't think about it.
Myself, what is the true scenario? And while 80% of the women in our country are actually not financially literate, we cannot ignore that some of our largest institutions and powerhouses are actually run by women that are financially driven. So, I mean, take Arundhati Bhattacharya of SBI, take our finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman. We have some very powerful ladies who are running the finance system in our country at some level or the other. And if you had to even talk about the stock markets, there are several studies that have been conducted to say why women could possibly be better investors. Whether it's to do with the EQ they have, whether it's to do with the patience. There's lots of studies to talk about this. And coming down to it, while we say there's a huge lack of it in our country, we have to acknowledge the fact that some of the best powerhouses are run by women who are in finance, and this is something that we need to really invest in and also investigate in, that why is our country still having a population of 80% of the women not literate financially. But if you had to ask me, what is the safest investment, asset class or whatever that somebody has to go into if they're a homemaker, I mean, the obvious answer, one of them would be index funds, which are usually considered one of the most secure equity funds. And the portfolio usually consists of a few blue chip stocks that have, well established companies, excellent track records, things like that. And one other trend that I'm sure all of us notice, whether it's in our families, whether it's just in society, is that gold is a very common one for Indians, and not only for homemakers, but Indians in general. People at some level, everyone has some investment in gold. But what I'm seeing around me, and this again is just my personal opinion, and I could be very far off from the truth on this, is that it is slowly the relevance of gold is starting to fall. And that's again just my personal opinion. There are several reasons why I try and not invest in gold. For example, it's very bad for inflation. It's a bad inflation hedge, if you could say that. And for me, the biggest thing is that in this day and age, with the world developing, with international movement, it's not a transferable asset. And this is where Bitcoin for me plays the biggest role, that at some level it is more transferable than gold. And if you own an ounce of gold today, a year from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, you'll still own an ounce of gold. And in contrast, if you own a stock in a company, companies produce things. This means that your investment in a sound company, a good company, if you call it, can hopefully grow and grow over time.
Start as small as you want. Even if you want to invest in gold in 100 rupees, I think you can buy digital gold. Taking the example of gold from Tarity, even if you want to invest in real estate today, you don't need lakhs or crores to invest. You can invest in REITs, a very small sum, just about 10,000, 15,000, and be invested in commercial real estate in the best locations of the country, where maybe investing in real estate will even make sense. So I think if real estate and gold you can enter with such low ticket sizes, there's capital absolutely does not make any difference at all, as long as you're diversifying. So even if you start with 100 rupees and you diversify it right, there's no limitation. I think ticket sizes to enter now are very, very small. Think of the 50, 30, 20 rule. I mean, no matter how small your income is, put 50% for necessities, 30% for desires and wants, and at least 20% should be invested. So even if your earning is less, if you're earning a stipend of just 10,000 rupees per month and you can follow this, please go ahead and follow it.